I'm sure you already know this, but Chelsea have just been battered by Celtic. And in the post-mortem of that match, Enzo Maresca said that the players were still trying to adjust to his tactics. The players are still having trouble adopting his style. Now, this kind of chat gave me a trauma, because us Chelsea fans have been there and done that. The words that Maresca said could have come straight out of Maurizio Sarri's mouth. Now, the Sarri era was a terrible era for Chelsea Football Club, and yet here we are again. This apparent focus on possession for possession's sake. There is no doubt about it. Possession stats are going to be a huge part of Chelsea Football Club next season. Now, look, I appreciate it's pre-season and you can't always read too much into it, but this defeat troubled me because of how much it reminded me of Maurizio Sarri. I mean, some people might argue that Maurizio Sarri won Chelsea a trophy and got us into the Champions League, and for us to replicate that next season would be a huge achievement. But what Sarri had that Enzo Maresca doesn't was Eden Hazard to bail him out of jail every single time it went wrong. I mean, the Belgians' brilliance time and time and time again papered over the cracks. And anyone who watched Chelsea week in, week out that season will tell you that it was an incredibly tough watch. Because despite the trophy, the attempt to adopt possession under Sarri didn't work then, and I'm really worried that it's not going to work now. Sarri ball, as his tactics were dubbed, was ultimately unsuccessful and immediately unpopular with Chelsea fans. And I tell you what, unless Enzo Maresca has a fast start to the season, I have a terrible feeling that it's going to end the same way, especially if he's as hard-headed and stubborn as Maurizio Sarri was. Look, I don't particularly buy into the idea that certain fans of certain clubs have a particular way that they demand to see the game played. The most popular football amongst fans of any team is ultimately winning football. Tottenham are a great example of this. The Tottenham way, Glenn Hoddle, Chris Waddle, Gareth Bale was born to play for Spurs, as they used to sing. But the second that they thought there was a chance of silverware, they made a pact with Jose Mourinho. The traditions went out the window because the prize of success is so valuable. But what I do know is this: if the team aren't winning, the possession-heavy approach will not go down well at Stamford Bridge. It's not who we are, and it's not what the culture of Chelsea Football Club's all about. We have a culture of winning. And to that effect, Jose Mourinho's tactics were different to Antonio Conte's, and Antonio Conte's were different to Carlo Ancelotti's. But the one thing that they all had in common, they all brought success to Stamford Bridge, and that is why they are idolised, and that is why they are revered. And whilst each manager approached the game differently, there was a clear theme to the way that they like to play football, a theme that resonated with Chelsea fans. A solid defence, an energetic midfield, and a powerful centre forward. Then you throw in some technically gifted attacking flair players and everyone is happy. Some of those Chelsea teams were sensational. We counter-attacked so quickly. We turned defence into attack brilliantly. It's the kind of football that naturally works at Stamford Bridge, and we have the players to play it now. Mourinho, Ancelotti, Conte, they were all pragmatists. They looked at what they had available and they picked the tactics to suit the players. Winning was the most important thing. In fact, it wasn't the most important thing, it was the only thing. And that pragmatism led to their success, and their success led to the fact that they are now seen as three of the best managers this century. Mourinho, Ancelotti and Conte are icons of the game because they found that crucial ingredient. How do you win? Unfortunately, I feel like we have gone with a manager who wants to impose a style of play on the players, regardless of whether it suits them or not. A manager with a plan A. A manager with a plan A who doesn't even need a plan B. Because if plan A doesn't work, it isn't because he got it wrong. It's because the players aren't executing the plan properly, not because the plan is wrong. Obviously, Enzo Maresca's style of play has been heavily influenced by his boss at Man City, Pep Guardiola, and Chelsea Football Club, a proud and prestigious and historic football club, formerly at least, have appointed a manager that, in my opinion, has been appointed solely because he has a pre-existing relationship with Pep Guardiola. Now, if that is true, I believe that reasoning to appoint a manager is pathetic. You earn the right to be the Chelsea manager. You don't simply become the Chelsea manager because you have an association or a friendship with Pep Guardiola. And the trouble is, when I look at our players, who are very gifted in their own way, I don't really feel like our players are conducive to Pep Guardiola's system. For Guardiola's system to work, it is such a specific and precise way to play the game. It's just so depressing, isn't it? It really is a hateful situation at Stamford Bridge. But if you want to cheer yourselves up, why don't you pop down to the Hippodrome in London's fashionable West End for a fantastic night with Poker Stars. There's an Ambassadors meetup game and you are invited. We'll have a few drinks, we'll play cards, and we can talk about what is going on at Stamford Bridge. It really will be a fantastic night, and there are some special prizes. Trust me, come down to the Hippodrome on Tuesday the 6th of August. It's going to be a fantastic tournament. I'll tell you what, if you do come and you play the tournament, we can have a drink afterwards and we can try and work out exactly what is going wrong at Stamford Bridge. Are the strengths of these Chelsea players naturally leaning towards Pep Guardiola's system? For me, The idea of Robert Sanchez trying to play like Ederson is frankly terrifying. And if we want to play out from the back, surely we need centre-halves who are more comfortable on the ball than Axel Disasi and Benoit Badiashile. Our midfield is severely lacking a player of Rodri's mould or his outstanding ability. Cole Palmer is basically our only really technically gifted forward. That's it, isn't it? Cole Palmer. We literally have one player that can make all of that possession count with a killer pass or a goal from nowhere. City have De Bruyne, Grealish, Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, and on top of it all, as good as Guardiola has been and as dazzling as his Man City side are, it's not the only way to play football. Surely, if our ambition is to dethrone Man City, what we need is a manager who can take it to him. Instead of that, we've appointed a B-Tech version of Guardiola. The reason why Liverpool got the better of Guardiola and got the better of Man City when Jurgen Klopp was their manager was because Klopp had his own ideals, his own principles, his own way of approaching football in his own way of making life very difficult for Pep Guardiola. How on earth is Enzo Maresca going to make life difficult for Guardiola when he basically plays football as a homage to his former boss? I mean, sporting directors and chairmen up and down the country seem to be falling over themselves to appoint managers that are preoccupied with this possession-based approach. And I just don't understand why. Not only did Klopp regularly get one over on Guardiola, but his side were the best side to watch by a mile. To be totally frank, as brilliant as Pep Guardiola is, as outrageously talented as his Manchester City squad are, I find their whole approach to football dull. Guardiola's style is effective, but is it enthralling? I would argue not. The regimented approach, the lack of ability to express yourself, the parameters within which you have to operate to be a Manchester City player, I find brilliant in its effectiveness, but dull on the eye. Use Jack Grealish as a case study. Think about the player that he was at Aston Villa. A marauding, unpredictable, exciting, mercurial footballer who had the whole end rocking like it was 1982 all over again. Think about what he is now. He's nothing more than a system player. I once described Jack Grealish as unpredictable. What is he now? He is one of the most predictable footballers in the league. If players can't take a risk, if they're fearful of giving away possession, how can you ever take a long shot? Would Michael Essien have ever scored that goal against Arsenal? Would Frank Lampard have ever scored that goal against Everton? A wayward shot or even a shot that hits the bar or gets well saved, it will more likely get you subbed than applauded by your manager. But because we don't give the ball away, we call it entertainment. Why is everybody trying to emulate Pep Guardiola when Real Madrid and Carlo Ancelotti won the European Cup yet again? People talk about Guardiola being the best of the best. I tell you what, Carlo Ancelotti's name needs to be very high on that list. 2 titles and 2 Champions Leagues in the last 3 years with a far less dogmatic approach to tactics. Look, perhaps I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Maybe he'll show us that he has more than one way of setting up the team. Maybe he'll display tactical flexibility when things aren't going our way. Maybe I'm projecting my lack of faith in the sporting directors in Eghbali, in Clearlake, onto Enzo Maresca. And I am most certainly backing him wholeheartedly. Even if he does only have 18 months of managerial experience, none of it in the top division. You can't work with Guardiola for the amount of time that he did and not be a good coach and have a deep understanding of tactics. Surely. However, unfortunately, the signs from Leicester regarding his tactical flexibility do not look good. They scraped over the line at the end of last season and it felt like everyone else in the Championship had worked them out. Their fans have highlighted Enzo Maresca's lack of flexibility as one of the reasons that they don't mind him leaving. They also described his football as boring and unyielding. Now I know we can take that with a pinch of salt because football fans are nothing if not tribal, and long may that continue. But it is insightful to a degree, isn't it? And the words boring and unyielding. What really did hit me when I heard those words mentioned were they are the exact words that I would use to describe Maurizio Sarri's time at Chelsea. I desperately hope I'm wrong. I desperately hope that Enzo Maresca gets it right, but I have a terrible fear that Enzo Maresca is going to be Maurizio Sarri Mark II. And if he is, it's going to end really, really badly. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'd be really keen to hear your thoughts on this, so please let me know how you think Chelsea will do in the comments below. I hope you have a really good day. Cheers.